Welcome back to The Jump, and welcome into Malcolm Brogdon from the Indiana Pacers, former Rookie of the Year. But Malcolm, we also really wanted to talk to you today because you and the Celtics Jaylen Brown have been participating together in those peaceful protests in Atlanta. What has that been like?
Man, it's been quite an experience. Being from Atlanta, being in the Deep South, you grow up seeing a lot of racial issues, a lot of discrimination. You sort of grow up in that environment. This is something these things have been happening for a long time now. I just think we're just now seeing them. They're just now, having footage of them being spread. The other day, I was able to participate in the protests with Jaylen. He led it. Thought he did a terrific job. We just protested downtown Atlanta, trying to affect change as much as we can.
What's the main message you want people to hear?
I want people to hear that, this is something that has been going on for over 400 years for people of color. And we are at a stage now where people are desperate. People are losing hope. And people of color, Black and brown people, are losing. We're at our wits' end. And at this point, we need help. At this point, we need other people. We need people of different races to step up with us, to step, in front of us, beside us, and support us, to speak up. Because, I think there's so much of the focus that's being put on the violence that's going on, the looting. And in no way do I condone the violence, but at the same time, I don't think that should be our focus. I think our focus should be on the oppressors, not the oppressed. So there are ways we need to vote. We have to get out and vote on the local level, on the state level, on the federal level. We have to get out and vote as a whole. But also those that are, specifically white people have to help. We have to find the white people that are in high enough positions that have notoriety that can speak up for us and help. So these are, there are multiple conversations going on, but at some point action has to be, put to the test. And, there's only so much African Americans can do. There's only so much weight our voices do hold. And that's why it's important for people of other races to step in and use the weight of their voice to impact change.
When you were in downtown Atlanta peacefully protesting, what was the reaction you got from other members of the community or the police who were listening to you? Did you have more people joining up with you or more people trying to work against you?
Definitely had a lot of people joining in, a lot of African Americans joining in, even white people joining in, saluting us, supporting us as they drove by. But at the same time, there was, Atlanta Police Department driving on either sides of us. And there were confrontations. It did get a little bit physical. A few people were detained and arrested, which was completely unnecessary. It was a peaceful protest. But, there's so many fear tactics that are used against people of color and people that are standing up for something that's right. So, it's a humbling experience, but I think it's very, courageous for, all of my ancestors, all of my grandparents, everybody's grandparents that went through this for years in the 60s and even before that were fighting for our rights. And we're still fighting today.
Well, you play for the Pacers now, but you were a member of the Bucks when Milwaukee guard Jaylen Brown went through a version of this. He was beaten and tased for a parking violation. That was a few years ago, but what impact did that have on you?
Significant impact. Sterling came into practice the next day and he said, he didn't say much, and people were asking, why is your face bruised? You have your eye is, pretty swollen. He's a pretty, he keeps to himself, but then he told us the situation. And that's when it exploded. And the Bucks were really upset about it. The team, I was upset about it. What his situation showed is you can be an NBA player, you can be a celebrity, you can be all these different serve all these different high profile positions, but at the same time, you are still a Black man. I am I think a well-known NBA player, a point guard for the Pacers. But when I leave the arena and I go home, I'm a Black man. And I'm going to be treated as such, no matter how much money I have, no matter what car I drive. And, this also brings up the element of, Black people also have to worry about their kids, their kids in the streets, our children, the younger generation. doesn't matter if we're NBA players, we have kids and we're going to have to train them. Why should we have to train our kids to not get shot when they get pulled over by the police, when they're driving home from school, when they're walking home the street and they have a hoodie on? Why should they not have to wear a hoodie? And it's such a backwards way of having to prepare your kids for the real world. It's something that has to change.
What is the most useful thing that somebody watching us have this conversation right now? What can they do to support the fairness and the justice that you're fighting for?
People of different races, I think, have to hold each other accountable. I think that's one of them. I think a lack of accountability is something we see in the with police officers. It's something we see in the criminal justice system. I think these are all symptoms of a larger problem, but it starts with accountability. It starts with people holding each other accountable, even when there's not an African American present. When you hear something racist or you hear a stereotype or you hear these things, hold someone accountable. When you see a wrongdoing, don't let only African Americans be the ones that are upset and going on about it. Be a part of the change for good.
Well, Malcolm, I really, really appreciate your time. I appreciate the time you put in over the weekend alongside Jaylen and so many others. We'll be looking forward to your continued leadership on this. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for having me.